Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Agenda Briefing Forum. This evening is not a decision-making forum, it is a briefing on the agenda for the Ordinary Council meeting, which will be held next Tuesday, the 28th of January 2025. I'd like to remind everyone in the chambers to ensure that comments are respectful to the Council and all meeting attendees, including city officers and those in our public gallery. Please note this meeting is being live streamed. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we are meeting, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Item 3 is announcements. There are none this evening. Item 4 is attendance. Councillor Palmer, Councillor Sutherland and Councillor Bull are apologies for tonight. Councillor Peterson-Pick, Deputy Mayor, is on leave of absence. And all other councillors are present in the chamber this evening. Item 5 is disclosures of interest. Councillors, do you have any interest to disclose? No? Okay, so we'll move on to item 6, which is deputations. So this evening we have 4 in-person deputations, and I'll explain how the deputation process will work. Each person who is presenting a deputation will be invited to come up to the microphone and speak to 5 minutes. As we get close to the 5 minutes, I will let you know so that you can conclude your deputation. Once you have finished, some of the councillors may have questions for you. So, the first deputation we have is in relation to item 10.1.1, proposed road dedication reserve 41129 Black Boy Way Reserve. Jason Bartel has requested to speak in support of the officer's recommendation. Please come forward and I'll just check if the microphone's on. Yeah, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Pefferetti, councillors and officers of the City of Bayswater. My name is Jason Bartel. I'm the principal of John Septimus Roe Anglican Community School, and I'm here to speak on behalf of the Angli Schools. That is, we are a part of Angli Schools, and they are formerly known as the Anglican Schools Commission, and they're the owners of the land on which the Roe Estate is being developed. In 2021, Angli Schools made the difficult decision to close the Beechborough campus of our school, and in January 2023 all students from the Beechborough campus successfully relocated to our campus in Mirrabooka. Now, while this decision was primarily a business-focused one, Angli Schools is committed to ensuring that we leave behind an appropriate and accessible estate in the City of Bayswater. In light of this, we commend and support the officer's recommendation and wish to express our appreciation for the consultative approach taken by the City's officers during the investigation into this final recommendation. And I'll keep my deputation brief. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions that may be to be asked.
Thank you for your deputation. I will ask if there are councillors that have questions. Councillor Johnson.
Thanks. Not technically about the application decision in front of us, but I'm curious about the development. So the school's doing the development themselves or selling the lots? Can you explain to me how it works? Yeah,
good question. The school is undertaking the development itself. So the school council will relate and take all consultative approaches with a project manager, but the school owns the estate. So Angli Schools is giving that, task to develop the property to the school council itself.
Thank you. And just like for the, this sounds different tonight, sorry. Just like for the interest of the neighbours, what's the time frame really for, obviously once, assuming all the approvals go ahead, what's the time frame for the development?
We would be hopeful, because there has been some background and significant work taken on the estate itself already. We'd be hopeful that we'd have blocks on sale in the second quarter this year.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? No, thank you very much. So we'll move on to the next deputation, which is in relation to item 10.3.4. Proposed street tree removal for subdivision of land 45 Gummery Street, Bedford. We have Jamie Ford has requested to speak in opposition to the officer's recommendation. Sorry, just the microphone. Come.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jamie Ford. I'm here to seek permission from Council to remove and replace a verge tree from the far left-hand side of the verge adjacent to my property to allow me to create an access leg for a Battle Axe subdivision I wish to apply for. The tree I'm seeking to remove and replace is a Queensland box tree located under power lines that is at least 48 years old, as evidenced on the 1977 Landgate aerial imagery. This species of trees only achieves 20 to 40 years of good health and maturity before beginning to decline, as reported in the Urban Tree Mortality Report in the August 2024 Council minutes. There are many Queensland box trees which are already dying and in decline, with reduced canopy coverage on every street in Bedford. I've provided photographic evidence of some of these trees. The tree on my property is covered in fungus and scale, which are signs that the tree is already in decline. Other reasons for the high percentage of Queensland box tree mortality as reported include the fact that it is a subtropical tree, and due to climate change, our environment no longer sustains this species, which requires a wetter and milder climate. It also highlights the constant stress trees under power lines receive as they are constantly being cut back, which diminishes their lifespan. The tree I'm requesting to remove is a post-mature tree at the end of its lifespan that is no longer suitable for the environment it was originally planted in. There was another tree of the same species located on the opposite side of the crossover, which died and was removed in 2023 due to heat stress, as well as the other mitigating factors listed above, demonstrating the likelihood that this current tree does not have many years left before it too will die. The Queensland box tree represents approximately 1/3 of the city's street trees, as reported in the May 2022 Council minutes. They make up almost double the amount of the next most planted verge tree in the city of Bayswater. This is in direct conflict with the trees on private land and street tree policy, whose objectives include providing a diverse range of tree species to assist with providing a more resilient urban forest. As stated in the 2022 minutes, typical watering costs of a mature tree are between 5 to 10 times the cost of watering a single juvenile tree. Mature trees require large volumes of water on a regular basis to assist them to recover from severe drought stress, although this intervention does not guarantee their survival. Even so, the city has allocated $100,000 in the latest budget solely for watering mature trees in distress, as well as allocating a full-time employee to do so. Money and resources could be utilised to try to systematically remove and replace these trees, as demonstrated by the City of Claremont, where Queensland box trees are allowed to be removed and replaced at the cost of the resident due to their inappropriateness and overabundance in the city's catchment area. In doing so, it will create a more resilient urban tree canopy, which in 5 to 10 years' time will be even more critical community to have, instead of having a policy which states that no tree is to be removed unless dead, which will then lead to a large percentage of the council area having a decreased urban tree canopy in the near future as these species of trees continue to decline and die en masse. The officer who is not in support of the application has advised two alternatives. The first is continuing with the already approved side-by-side subdivision applied for by the previous owner of the property. This would mean demolition of the current property, which would result in adding a considerable increase in carbon emissions, landfill and waste, which is in opposition to Strategy 9 of the City of Bayswater Strategic Community Plan 2021 to 2031. By allowing this, the urban heat island effect is increased by adding to greenhouse gases. The main reasoning for keeping the tree is to reduce the heat island effect, but the demolition of a house over the retention of a post-mature, inappropriate tree species at the end of its lifespan doesn't seem like an appropriate payoff. The second alternative is to create an easement on the property to create a driveway to the back block. Unfortunately, this is not possible. Due to the location of the house on the block, the outdoor space needs to be located at the front of the property. To be able to comply with our codes, the access to the outdoor space would need to be located on the right-hand side of the property, where the main living area is. The car spaces would need to be located on the left-hand side of the property, where the easement is proposed. It has been suggested to create a driveway around the tree with examples provided located at 51A Bourne Street, 32 Clark Road and 18 Amanda Street. These properties are new builds who could build to the land limitations, with two of the properties having garages located at the back of the building and the other property having the garage on the opposite side of the access leg. This is because it is not viable to create parking for the front property and an easement driveway in the same location in most instances. It is not possible on my property for an access driveway to the back block to go around the tree, as well as provide two car spaces and an outdoor area with access from the main living room for the front house, which are all requirements of the current R codes. I believe it is in the community's best interest to allow me to remove the Queensland box tree that is at the end of its lifespan and replace it with a native drought-tolerant, height-appropriate tree that will benefit the community for many decades to come without costing the community money or resources. I would
Sorry,
like-
You're just at 5 minutes, so.
Just like 3 sentences. I would like to propose that I plant a coral gum that is on the current City of Bayswater planting palette and Waterwise tree list and is a native drought-tolerant species. I'm happy to source a tree that is already at a reasonable height to mitigate the time it will take for it to reach maturity and allow more shade and help reduce the urban heat island effect immediately, as well as make sure the verge is reticulated as to increase the chances of survival. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I'll just ask if there are questions from councillors. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you. Thank you for your detailed deputation and reference to some of our strategies. Just curious, how long have you owned the property?
Less than a year.
Okay. Have you ever watered this tree?
No.
Okay.
It's right in the corner and it's surrounded by different driveways on each side. So there's, and I'm not currently at the
Just
property.
curious, just thinking about like the history of the tree. Thank you.
Any other questions? No, thank you very much for your deputation. The next one is in relation to item 14.1.1. Bruce Webber, on behalf of WA Feral Cat Working Group, has requested to speak in opposition of the officer's recommendation, but I don't believe you've seen the officer's recommendation, or they have?
I'm taking a guess, and I'll
Okay, so-
outline that in my
So
deputation.
you're not so I'm not, you're just speaking to the item because you haven't seen the recommendation.
I'll outline my assumptions, if that helps, and then assuming my assumptions are valid.
So just before you
Or-
commence,
Sure.
I'm just going to remind councillors that before I invite you to ask any questions of the deputy, I just want to draw to your attention to the fact that this item is confidential. So please be mindful of questions and general questions in relation to the deputation made or the process should be able to be answered in the public forum, but any questions that refer to information contained within the report or the attachments must be asked behind closed doors. So please go ahead.
With that in mind, okay. Thank you. Thank you for your time. My name is Dr. Bruce Webber and I represent the WA Feral Cat Working Group. I speak to you tonight on item 14.1.1 and assuming my assumptions are correct, I speak in opposition to the officer's recommendation. I understand that confidentiality means that little information can be shared on this agenda item. However, with what information is available, the known framework involved and past decisions made by the current JSCDL membership, it allows us to assume that this committee has recommended disallowance for the Clause 82 approach you have taken to prevent cat roaming across the city. This is a very disappointing outcome if it is true, but one that isn't surprising. If the city is intending to adopt the recommendation in the JSCDL's confidential report as proposed in item 14.1.1, then we assume that the city is proposing to remove any local laws relating to cat containment. I will outline for you tonight why this recommendation is not appropriate. As we have discussed before, a recommendation for a disallowance is not the final point in the process for the creation of local laws. It's simply another piece of feedback for you to consider to add to the array of feedback already gathered. Let's consider that other feedback. We have shared with you the wealth of scientific data that supports the prevention of cats roaming for the benefits of cats themselves, for local wildlife, and for the people of your community. You have heard twice from your community now that they want cats to be permanently contained. This strong message mirrors what we are hearing as a working group from across the state. The majority of local governments would put in place cat containment laws if there was a clear pathway to implementation. You are also aware that the leading organisations for cat welfare in the state, Cat Haven WA, the Australian Veterinary Association and the RSPCA all recommend that pet cats should be prevented from roaming for the welfare of the cats as well as their impact on people and the environment. You have legal advice, including that from Castledine Gregory, the views of Legima, and your own legal advice from January 2024 that clarifies the pathway pursued for containment in the recent local law process is valid, reasonable, and proportionate.
Your own peak body, Walga, is firmly in support of cat containment laws, as was so clearly articulated at their AGM last October. And as I informed you in October last year, we have been consulting on this matter with Upper House members of all political persuasions. They have told us that it would be entirely appropriate for a containment law to be considered by the Upper House. Indeed, they are surprised that it has not been discussed in the Upper House as yet. The primary pathway to enable this engagement is through a local government declining a recommendation of disallowance from the JSCDL. Upper House members want to engage on this issue in an open, accountable and transparent way. That is, they want you to ignore this recommendation for disallowance. To summarise, in one corner, we have the scientific community, the leading organisations nationally for cat welfare, some of our state's leading legal practitioners in local government law, your own legal team, your own peak body, members of the Upper House, and most importantly, the community of the City of Bayswater, who you have been elected to represent. In the other corner, you have one single committee who have made an opaque recommendation and who choose not to share any justification for their views. Be aware that this one opinion comes from a committee that is currently prorogued, that will never sit again with its recent membership, and is clearly isolated in its views on the matter. When the JSCDL is reformed after the election, it will have different members with different views and the ability to revisit past legal advice. It would be wise, therefore, to not assume that past performance is the best indication of future results with this committee. Councillors, up to this point, you have shown impressive leadership by putting cat containment laws back into the picture for the city. You have listened and responded to your community with a position that is backed by the lion's share of relevant stakeholders for this issue. Your choice to oppose the officer's recommendation, that is, to disregard the recommendation of disallowance from the JSCDL, is simply the next step in setting up a clear path to implementation for cat containment laws in WA. We encourage you to stay the course and do what is right on this incredibly important matter. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Right on 5 minutes. Well done. I'll just ask if there are any questions from councillors. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Dr. Webber, for outlining all of those items.
Pleasure.
You've been here so many times. I think we probably should name a seat after you in the gallery. Can you remind us how long have you been advocating on this position to the City of Bayswater?
We became involved as a working group on this issue around, in the process of the second time this was coming together for you guys. We initially were approached to provide some data and some evidence, some access to the research. But at the same time, that coincided with a big push from across the state for us as a working group to become more active in the pet cat space. You're aware our working group is the feral cat working group, but 2 years ago we organised a national conference in Western Australia, and we had 250 of the nation's leading cat experts in that room. And we put to them in that workshop what is the lowest hanging fruit that will make the biggest difference in terms of cat management across the nation. And they said, without a doubt, it is the containment of pet cats. You know, feral cats are an enormous issue in this country. We hear from Tanya Plibersek on that all the time. But it is in fact containing pet cats that will make the biggest difference in the shortest period of time. And the best thing with pet cats is we have a really clear solution. Feral cats is an enormous problem and we're trying with so many different tools, but pet cats, it's a policy decision. And ironically, that's a policy decision that is actually better for cats. And we've seen this wonderful turnaround in awareness in the community over the past 10 years, backed by all of that data from cat owners and cat lovers. You know, I like cats myself. But they're starting to understand too that keeping their cats from, preventing them from roaming is actually the best for the pet cats. If you truly love your cats, you wouldn't let them roam. More cat owners than not have lost a cat to road deaths. So that's why we got involved in this issue, and we've been providing evidence-based assessment to the city, and we hope that that has reached the community, and I think it has made a difference, and it is wonderful to see your city taking such proactive action in this space. You know, you could transform outcomes for the wildlife and the pet cats of Western Australia. You have that ability in your hands next week. Gosh, I urge you to take that opportunity, because as councillors, you're here to make a difference and you're here to leave a legacy. And this is one opportunity where you can leave a legacy that will last for decades. And down the track, when we look back at who was that council that initiated that change in WA, that took from national laggards to potentially national leaders in this space, they'll turn and they'll say it was the City of Bayswater. And who were those councillors in the City of Bayswater that made that brave decision? It'll be you guys sitting around the table. So I hope that's what happens next week.
Thank you for that. You referred to other, sorry if I could ask one more question,
ahead.
please. We referred to other councils who have been looking at doing new cat laws themselves.
Yeah.
How many other local governments, either regional or in metro areas, are looking at reviewing their cat acts at the moment?
I don't have the list in front of me. I do have a list that I've prepared that outlines who has put forward cat laws in the past with containment as part of those cat laws. There are local governments who are doing it without the containment laws, but there's 23 or 24 now that have put forward containment laws that have listened to the recommendation and followed the recommendation and been knocked back. A lot of those councils don't understand the full framework of how you can actually push back and ignore the recommendation. They understand it as a final decision rather than a recommendation, and we've been helping local governments understand that there is actually a really well-formed pathway to take this to the upper house to have full discussion in an open and transparent way. But I can provide councillors with that list of other councillors. I can take that on notice. If that's of interest, please get in touch.
It would be helpful, I think, because you know, we're deep in what we're doing, but I don't know what's really happening across the sector apart from
Yeah, no, I can certainly give you information on the councils we're in touch with on that front. There are some that come out of the blue. We discovered one late last year who was well on the way to putting forward containment laws, and we weren't even aware of it. And sadly, if we had been aware of it, it would have been in a much better position to get those through.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
Any other questions, councillors? I have a few questions.
Yes.
Thank you. So in your deputation, you made comment towards the city's legal advice.
Yes.
I was just wondering, have you seen that? Because you made reference to it.
No, I haven't seen that personally. I've been provided that information. I can go back to my notes and I can let you know where I got that information from, if that's of use.
Yep, that would be helpful.
Absolutely, yep.
The other question that I had is, you talk about upper house members not being in agreement with the JDSCL, or
Yes.
the Standing Committee on Delegated Legislation. Are you aware that the membership of that committee includes members from the upper house?
I am, yes.
Okay, so there is representation from the upper house
There is,
on that
yes.
committee.
Yes.
Okay, and your group, your working group, the WA Feral Cat Working Group, what advocacy has your group done to members of that committee?
We don't engage with members of that committee. Members of that committee generally don't engage with the public. We have tried. I have spoken as a representative of the committee with the chair of that committee, but those discussions are very superficial because the members of that committee are not allowed to discuss anything to do with the activities of that committee. There's very strict guidelines around that. So I engaged with the chair of that committee as the member for South Perth and shared what we did as a working group and the activities and the work we do in this space with him as the member for South Perth.
Okay. And what advocacy have you done with the Minister for Local Government?
We engage regularly with the Minister for Local Government. We've engaged regularly with the past 3 ministers for local government in this space.
So have we.
Yes.
So I know
It's incredibly challenging in that regard. Our advocacy with the Minister in this regard has been to make it very clear that a review of the CAT Act is not the solution we need immediately, that this needs to be a multi-pronged approach. We're very supportive, don't get me wrong, of a review of the CAT Act when it happens, if it happens. But the simple fact of the matter is that the last review of the CAT Act in 2019 provided overwhelming support for cat containment. In fact, 73% of the people in that review said that they want cats contained. And we are now, 5 or more than 5 years down the track after that, and that mandate for containment has never been acted on. So even if there's another review, there's no clarity or no agreement whatsoever that we would end up with containment. Our advocacy has been about pushing that review on one hand, but also ensuring that we can actually utilise the existing CAT Act as it's currently written.
So I'm just on that point,
Yes.
if I could just ask a question.
Yep.
If you're concerned that a review of the CAT Act may not necessarily include containment, what benefit then do you see in the City of Bayswater going down the pathway of going to the upper house? Because if there
yeah.
was support, which is what I believe you're saying,
Yes.
in the upper house, then why wouldn't that be included?
So apologies, let me clarify. I absolutely do think that containment will be in the review of the CAT Act and actually will be part of the policy legislation when that CAT Act hits the ground. Whether that happens at the state level or the local government level remains to be seen, but we're consulting with the Minister for Local Government very closely on that matter. So it will absolutely be part of the review of the CAT Act. The problem with the review of the CAT Act is that it won't deliver on-ground outcomes until 2030 at the very earliest because of the amount of time that change takes.
Okay.
And the problem with that is many millions of dead animals, many millions of dead cats, and we need a solution now, and there is a solution now that can be pursued by refusing the recommendation of the JSCDL.
And can I ask the members of the upper house that
Yes.
you believe support this, if this was to go, can you provide us which members they are?
I would prefer, I'm not going to name them by name now. They come from the Labor Party, the Liberal Party, the National Party, the Greens and the Cannabis Party. I'm happy to go back to the people we've consulted with and ask them if they would mind being named, and if that's the case, I'd be happy to provide you with their details.
Okay.
I just haven't asked them as yet, but I'm
And-
sure that would be okay.
And to your knowledge, do you know if those supportive upper house members have been advocating themselves within their, well, particularly within the government, the members part of the government, if they've been advocating for these on-the-ground changes to happen prior to the review?
Yes, and what I would encourage you to do is to look at the questions that have been put in the upper house from various people around the CAT Act, and that may give you some insight into their interest in this area.
And you mentioned before that you're working with a number of local government similar that are
Yes.
looking at this. Do you know how many of those local governments have taken their CAT Act or their local laws through the path of not agreeing to the committee's recommendation and going through Parliament? Do you know how many local governments?
I'm not aware of that. What I am aware is that I'm not aware of any discussions going to the upper house as yet. And one of the people we did consult with in the upper house, as I said in my speech, remarked that they were quite disappointed that they hadn't had the chance to discuss this in the upper house.
Okay.
And which only comes from ignoring the recommendation of disallowance.
Yeah. And as you mentioned before, the current Parliament is prorogued and
Yes.
won't be meeting before the election. So potentially after election, the makeup of members in the upper house may be different.
And also in the committee too, yes,
Yeah.
very likely.
Yeah.
It's generally new members of the upper house end up on the JSCDL.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions, councillors? Thank you for your deputation.
Pleasure.
So our next deputation is in relation to the same item, item 14.1.1, Rachel Roberts on behalf of Environment House and the Friends of Groups for the City of Bayswater. All the Friends of Groups
all of the wetland friends of groups,
Okay.
which I think are most of them anyway.
has
I do
requested to speak.
I don't know. Sorry, it's Rachel Roberts from Bayswater. I don't know whether you've all seen the Cat Haven pamphlet about cat care by owners, but I just thought it might be useful while I give my deputation if you have a copy.
Sorry, Rachel.
I need to make a declaration of interest that I'm a member of Environment House, and obviously deputations coming from them. It's a
Impartial.
impartial interest. Thank you.
Okay. Please proceed.
Okay, and when you've got that Cat Haven pamphlet in front of you, I've in fact handed 20 of these to my mum today because they've released quenders in Bold Park, and she lives in Floriat, and there's now quenders digging her front garden, and there are also 4 cats roaming around her yard constantly, which she's obviously really concerned about. So I have, these are really great information documents, but you'll see if you read Did You Know on the back, it's got the stats that between 1 in 4 cats with outdoor access is hit by a car. Out of this, 70% of them will die. Contained cats on the front, average lifespans, and it says contained cats will live for 15 years. Outdoor cats, the average lifespan is 4.5 years. So I just want to make it clear that through all of the work everyone's been doing, this information is getting out into the community and making it really clear why we need cat containment. So I also wanted to make a note that David Dyke can't be here tonight, somebody who has individually championed this issue for so long in the City of Bayswater, and I would argue through his amazing advocacy, united the council. This has been an issue where the council has voted on a number of occasions together to get this done. I stand here as someone who was approached by David, and he was had no friends, didn't know how to do this. I've stood by him through this whole journey, as have all of the Friends of Groups. It's why I'm here again tonight in my own time. I'd like to thank Councillor Everson, who also stood by David, and that's one of the reasons why this has been able to progress through the City of Bayswater. So I just want to really refer to that unity that we've had over this issue, and it's been really, I know David has really appreciated it, so he's in hospital at the moment. And yeah, we don't know when he's coming out. So thank you for the opportunity to table a deputation on this issue. Thank you to our council for continuing to represent the interests of our community and this local law. As we've already heard from Dr. Webber, there's been extensive deputations over many years. This deputation asks our elected councillors to stay the course, represent our community and support our local law under the WA Cat Act 2011. We assume that our council will be considering a request from the Joint Standing Committee at this meeting coming up. The agenda suggests that there is a reason why this matter should be dealt with behind closed doors, and perhaps next week we can seek further clarification as to why. We can only work on the assumption that the Joint Standing Committee has written to Council, and you may have a notice of motion to disallow before you. We note that Joint Standing Committee members who wrote that letter will not constitute the Joint Standing Committee in the next Parliament. We also note the extensive evidence that for every month or year that we delay, more of our native wildlife will be lost completely unnecessarily, and pet cats will be lost and injured unnecessarily. And we've already heard that review of the Cat Act, you know, at the very minimum, we will only see that come to fruition by 2030. And just to add to that, the Chittering Council tried to put up a similar containment law and got knocked back. And this week we learned that a pet cat in Bindoon, I think I emailed you about this, took out Carnaby cockatoos and their fledglings, one cat in artificial nesting boxes, and that it just happened to be monitored is how they knew that. So that disallowance of that law has led directly to a very endangered species being targeted by pet cats in Bindoon. I wanted to go through why you should not act on the request to remove clause 2.2 and instead choose to utilise the disallowance procedure of the Legislative Council. So you did mention this legal advice. It was mentioned in the October agenda that the council had received legal advice that confirmed that the city can use the mechanism of Section 82 of the CAT Act 2011. So that's how we know about it. It was in the agenda item in October. And that is one of the reasons we believe that you should stay the course. In the public realm, we have the legal opinion of Castledine Gregory, 2023. They stated that the effective control provision is valid and reasonable and proportionate exercise of power to make laws. There are currently, number 3, there are currently only 3 domestic animals allowed to roam freely: the bee, the pigeon and cats. Pet owners are aware of their obligations to have control of pets, and adding cats to this list is not an unreasonable addition. It is easily explained, given the well-documented benefits of human health, and that's often under-recognised, that roaming cats can be a risk to human health, cat welfare, wildlife welfare, and individuals' enjoyment of their personal property and surrounds. Number 4, the Joint Standing Committee does not have the power to disallow delegated legislation. Only you have that power. So, and that's articulated in the WA Parliament website. They can request it of you, but they do not have the power to remove Clause 2.2. Number 5, there is no specific legal advice in the public realm that supports the removal of Clause 2.2 from the City of Bayswater. Yep.
You've reached 5 minutes. If you can.
I will go quickly then, if that's all right. All we have is the advice from public servants clearly stating that their comments do not constitute legal advice, and that was in page 42 of the last ordinary council meeting agenda. You'll see in my deputation, I've referred to the CAT Act, which is to provide for the control and management of cats. We agree with Castledine and Gregory on that. So it's an entirely reasonable and legal course of action to use the rules of the WA Parliament. It was made specifically for these circumstances. Use the disallowance procedure of the Legislative Council, and we urge you to not support any notice of disallowance from the Joint Standing Committee regarding Clause 2.2, and we strongly urge you to use the clearly outlined disallowance procedure of the Legislative Council on the WA Parliament website in support of your own local law. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just ask if there are any questions from councillors. No, thank you for your deputation.
Okay, thank you.
So, councillors, we've received 2 written deputations tonight in relation to items 10.3.4, proposed street tree removal for subdivision of land 45 Gummery Street, Bedford, from Georgina Kerr, supporting the officer's recommendation. And then in relation to item 14.1.1, keeping in control of cats amendment local law 2024 from David Dyke on the recommendation. These have been provided to councillors and are available on the city's website, and I will take those as read. So we now move on to item 7, which is questions on the agenda, reports. And first I'll ask if there's any questions on items that were subject to deputations. So do we have any questions on items 10.1.1, proposed road dedication reserve for Black Boy Way, Morley? Any questions, councillors, on this one? No? Okay. Any questions on 10.3.4, proposed street tree removal for subdivision of land 45 Gummery Street? Any questions to the officers? Councillor Ossowski.
Thank you. In the report, and I have emailed this through to the city already, there is an error with the Halliwell calculation. So I just wanted to bring that to the city's attention so that that can be corrected. My question is about the Halliwell amenity value. If council approves for a tree to be removed, would the applicant be then required to pay the city the Halliwell value?
I'll go to the director.
Through the chair, the council could ask for that valuation or that value to be paid by the proponent.
So if council approved for the removal of that tree, we could ask for them to pay that Halliwell value, but they don't necessarily have to pay it.
I'll go to the director.
Through the chair, if council were to resolve to remove the tree, to allow for the removal of the tree, then you can place a condition on for the Halliwell value to be paid.
When people in the past have had a tree removed or when have paid the Halliwell value, what does the city do with that money? Do we then use that money to purchase more trees to plant in the vicinity of that removed tree?
I'll go to the CEO.
Yeah, through the chair, I don't think we've been faced with a situation like that, councillor, not in my time. But council could put a condition on that if we were to receive the money, then you could condition it for it to go towards planting within that area.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on this item? No? Okay, any questions on item 14.1.1? Just making sure if you're asking questions in relation to the confidential section, we'll have to go behind closed doors. Councillor Johnson.
I do have a question. I have no desire to close the doors, but I wonder if it could be asked later on at the end of the
Sure.
meeting, perhaps?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any questions that can be asked in public from councillors? No. Okay. So, councillors, are there any other items that you'd like to ask questions on? Because I haven't been notified that any councillors have advised. Councillor Sosowski.
Thank you. Sorry, I didn't notify. It's been a bit of a hectic couple of days. This one is on item 10.1.3. It's the election costs item.
Yeah.
There are a whole heap of assumptions that the Electoral Commission has used to calculate the cost, and I see that they're accounting on a 35% participation rate. Our participation rate, I think last year was 34%, but I think was an anomaly and hasn't really been that over many years. It's been in the low 20s.
So the question.
So the question is, have we pushed back on the WAEC for a better price based on participation rate over a longer period of time?
I'll go to the manager.
Through the Mayor, no, we haven't pushed back on the estimate provided by the WAEC. My understanding is that we luckily get quite high voter participation at the elections in Bayswater, so I believe that we've been getting above 30% for a number of years now, and it's possibly been a while since we've had a number under 30%. So it has been in the 31, 32 sort of range for a while.
Okay, cool. Just one last question then. Does the WAEC after the election then look at everything that came through based on those assumptions and go, oh, we really shouldn't have charged them this much, we should have only charged them this much? Do they then lower the quote and we pay less? Or do they refund us money?
I'll go to the manager to respond.
Through the Mayor, so the city doesn't pay until after the election, so this is an estimate that's given to us and we obviously budget for the estimate, but then after the election the WA will send us through the final costs, the real costs. Having said that, I haven't seen one come in particularly under the original estimate that's been given. So.
Any other questions on any other items? Councillor Johnson.
Sorry. Yeah, I have a question. I didn't give you notice. My apologies. On the financials, so 10.2.1, and I haven't got a page number, but in the summary it talks about our materials and contracts being under budget, around $500,000. I'm just wondering if they are timing differences or are programs not being delivered. Do you want me to find the exact page number?
I'll just go to the Director Corporate to see if she needs that information from you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'm just referring to the attachment. Just one moment. Madam Mayor, it appears from the variance reporting that it is due to timing with 4 major projects referred to here. So there's a tree planting program, waste disposal, ICT and power line clearances that are slightly below year-to-date budget.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this item? Any questions on any other items? Okay. If not, I will close the agenda briefing forum. Oh, so Councillor Johnson, you have a question that we've got to go behind closed doors for 14.1.1? No? Okay, so I will now close the meeting at 7:46 p.m. Thank you, everyone.
Yes.